know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it like I'm doing it for TV. Keep your hands up. Put your hands up. Come on. Keep your hands up. Way back. Put your hands up. Way back again. Keep your hands up. Way back. I remember the days of free, my shit be right. Don't put me 13, no more Chris.
What is up, YouTube? What is the deal, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Finally, the NFL preseason is just about among us. We have our first preseason game coming up in a couple days. I haven't made a video in a couple. What was the last video I made? I don't even fucking remember. I don't remember. I know I made a test video back in April or something like that. I was testing out this new software that I'm probably going to be using throughout the year. All right, so my last video was about 25 days ago. That was my last video, and we're talking about the logos. But anyway, I got a couple things I want to talk about before this preseason gets ready to kick off. A couple interesting things that have come out, and we'll talk about a couple different things that I want to talk about. And I guess to start this video off, we'll start this off with the first title on this video, which will be, which is the topic of a lot of people. A lot of people are actually talking about this, including myself and a couple of different Facebook groups. I've been very vocal about what I thought about this deal, and the way that I thought the deal should go from an organizational standpoint. I absolutely feel like I would love to see the trio that we have right now kept together. That's why I thought people were absolutely assholes when they were saying things such as we should let Kenny Stills go somewhere else, even though the connection between the deeper patterns and the deeper routes for this quarterback have been an issue. They have been an issue. If you go back and you look at him connecting with guys like Mike Wallace, that was an issue. If you go back and you look at the first year of Kenny Stills really wasn't an impact player on this offense until the second year. And that was one of the reasons why I was so adamant about not messing up this chemistry that these guys have. You know what I mean? I'm very interested to see where this third year is going to take us. You know what I mean? What is going to transpire with the weapons that we have, and adding Thomas to this. Going into this year, we don't have the questions in the backfield that we had last year. Of course, last year after losing Lamar Miller, we didn't really know what we had. We just knew we had a whole bunch of running backs. And of course, we signed, I forget the old dude from the Texans that couldn't stay healthy. We signed him. He ends up retiring. And then J-Train busts on the scene in that Steeler game, and the rest is fucking history. And now we have a couple different backs in the backfield. We have J-Train. We have Damian Williams. We have we have Drake. I really want to see what a guy like Storm Johnson can do. The kid Devin something, I forget his name, running back that was drafted. I want to see what he's going to be able to bring to this offense as well. From everything that I've heard, this is going to be an offense that is going to come out of the gate and attempt to establish the run, unlike what we did last year, where we did not. And then when we did start leaning on the run, the wins start to pick up. When we didn't have that balance, we didn't have that running game, we were struggling. We were 1-4 and barely beating the Browns. But let's talk about this Jarvis Landry contract situation. I'm going to put this article on my screen real quick. I posted this article I actually posted this article in a Facebook group that I was in. Watch people call it fake news. It has been on the Sun Signal now. It's been on the Daily Dolphin blog, and just want to go over this a little bit, and then I'll come back and we will actually go into it. But it says Dolphin owner Stephen Ross, no rush to a Landry deal. Perhaps it was a negotiating tactic, a smart one at that, or maybe something more revealing than that. When asked about securing Jarvis Landry's future with a contract extension, Dolphins owner Stephen Ross made it clear there's no pressure on the team to get something in place by an arbitrary deadline. He was not adamant or even optimistic, for example, about making a deal before the season started September the 10th. Ross praised Landry's production and the way he carried himself this offseason, but made clear the organization is willing to consider placing the franchise tag on Landry next year in order to keep him. I think he's a great player. There's no question about that. Ross said this afternoon, I think he's handled himself well. He didn't hold out. It's not a question of if we don't sign him now, we lose him. We can franchise tag him and go from there. There's a lot of opportunity for him to stay here. I hope he stays here because he's a great player. Now, if you step back and you take a look and see what this team has done in the offseason, that including re-signing Cameron Wake, I think it was a contract extension for Rashad Jones, re-signing Branch, re-signing Kenny Stills, picking up the option on James, re-signing Kiko Alonso. It looks to me like this team, this organization has taken care of the majority of its players, including guys who are not up for a contract just yet, including Rashad Jones. I mean, the other thought process could be, well, they wanted to take care of certain players this year, and then work those other guys in at a later time. But when you look at it, how do you not, if this individual carries this much of a bulk of your offense, as a lot of fans say, I don't say this, but they say that this person is the heartbeat of the team, or all of these things. If that is the case, how do you sign other guys before you sign a Jarvis Landry? I really don't understand that. That doesn't make a lick of sense to me. If it makes sense to you, you let me know. But that doesn't make a lick of sense to me. If you're resigning anybody, wouldn't it make a hell of a lot of sense to go ahead and re-up this person? Now, if you know me, I am a very, very controversial person here on YouTube. I've always been a conspiracy theorist, and I say what I feel. I've always been like that ever since I started making YouTube videos or starting to post things on Facebook, whatever the case may be. I've always been an individual who has looked beyond what everyone else is looking at. And when I saw this team draft Leonte Carroo and actually go up to draft Leonte Carroo, I started looking at Leonte Carroo because I didn't know who Carroo was. I had no idea who Carroo was. And I didn't know who Leonte Carroo was. So I started looking up highlights and things on Leonte Carroo. And I saw the things that Leonte Carroo does well. And the biggest thing that he does well is yak. He's a good yak receiver, right? Good hands receiver in slave ball. So I started thinking, like, why in the hell would we go up to get a Leonte Carroo? That doesn't make sense. He's definitely, and I've seen people say, all right, he's going to end up being a slot receiver. I mean, he's going to end up working on the outside. But his size, If you look at the size, the stature for Leonte Carew, what I see from Leonte Carew is that Anquan Bolden, Hines Ward type of receiver. When you look at Jarvis Landry, you see some of the same things. Now, Jarvis Landry is 10 times better than those guys in the open field. He's hands down, he's one of the best open field receivers that I've seen in a very long time. In the open field, he's a dynamic weapon for the Miami Dolphins. My question is, as a team, as an organization, what is the price point that you place on this? What is the price point that you're willing to place on a receiver who's not a volume scorer, who does not give you points? What is your price tag for that? And my question is, I don't know. When I look at other teams and I look at what they have, especially the winning organizations. I'm not talking about bad organizations, because bad organizations do stupid shit. Bad organizations reach for players. They spend way too much money on players, and that's some of the reason why they're bad organizations. They do dumb shit. That's just what happens. So I expect bad organizations to. Oh, I expect bad organizations to do dumb shit, right? Um, my thing was always, and I pissed a lot of people off, man. When I come in and I say that his money should be right where Edelman's is, and we shouldn't overreach, because basically that's what the Edelmans, the Cole Beasleys, those guys, the small, short, slow receivers who have good hands and work in space. And I've had people tell me 14 million, all this crazy shit. And I'm like, what are you talking about? No other team is reaching, no other playoff caliber team is reaching like that. But I just think it's very interesting the way that these cards are folding, the way these cards are falling. I'm sorry, from the Dolphins. It's very interesting, and I'm just sitting here trying to read the tea leaves. You go up in the draft, you get a guy in a Leonte Carew, um, and we just signed another little small. Like, there's so many options, and I believe the team has all the leverage. Now, my other thing, and this is something that this is gonna sound interesting when I say this shit. Odell Beckham Jr. has said that he would like to be the highest paid player in football. Now, there is no debating that there has been some issues with Odell Beckham at certain times with the New York Giants. If you go back a few years ago, and you sit back and you look at the Miami Heat, you remember Dwayne Wade able to bring his friend down here, Miami, to live? Remember that? Yeah. I was thinking, what would happen if Jarvis Landry was able to convince Odell Beckham Jr. to come to Miami? Now, would we have the money to pay him? I do not know. But I do know that he's going to pay way more money in taxes living in New York or playing in New York than he would if he was in Florida. He would pay, so not to mention, he would come down here, join in on what we have in Florida. You always have the allure of South Beach. You have you have the interesting interesting issue with not having the state tax, and he gets to play alongside his buddy that he played with in slave ball. So that's very interesting. That's just something that went through my mind. And at that point, then we would have another interesting situation at wide receiver because we already had Kenny Stills locked up. We would have Odell Beckham and Landry and Devontae Parker. Devontae Parker at this point looks like the odd man out. It's just shit that was going through my mind. I haven't heard it from anybody else, but I think it would be very interesting. The other thing that could possibly happen is Jarvis Landry heading to the Giants. That would be interesting. That would be interesting for the Giants. A lot of Dolphin fans would be pissed off, but just interesting. Now, oh man, excuse me. All right, last issue that I wanted to talk about. Of course, NFL preseason is coming up. My biggest thing with the NFL preseason, the first game is going to be August the 3rd, which will be the Cowboys versus the Arizona Cardinals. Our first game is going to be Thursday, August the 10th versus the Atlanta Falcons. I really hate that date for the Atlanta Falcons game. Like, I really wish that game was like our third game of the preseason. And I say that because we would probably get one half of our starters versus their starters, and we clearly have a measuring stick as to what our defense is going to kind of look like. Now, of course, in the preseason, teams are not going to throw everything that they have out of the window. Their offenses are probably going to be very, very vanilla, but will get to see, just talent versus talent. In the preseason, my thing is let's not have massive injuries. I don't want to see massive injuries from no team. And a lot of Dolphin fans like, well, you wouldn't mind, you would care if Tom Brady ends up tearing an ACL in the preseason. I want to beat those guys at full strength. It's like when the Bulls had Scottie Pippen. I didn't want to beat like if you're a Heat fan, you don't want to beat those guys when those guys are gone. It's just gonna mean a little bit less. I want to beat them when they're full strength, when they're healthy. Go out there and just beat those guys then. I wouldn't like to beat them when they're hurt or when a guy's down. That does like that just takes a little bit from it. You want to beat the great ones in their strength. It's like boxing. It's like when people take certain things away from certain boxers. And the reason why they take those things away from those certain boxers is because they never beat great boxers in their prime. Like a lot of people have that knock on Floyd Mayweather. And the reason why they have that knock on Floyd Mayweather is because Floyd Mayweather didn't fight certain guys until they got older. You know what I mean? I don't want to beat those guys when they're older and when they're hurt. Anyway, man, that is my video. My freaking Dolphin hat uh, just came in. Just got my Dolphin hat. Um, so I'm ready for the fucking season, man. I'm ready for the season. It's been a long few months, man. It's been a long few months without football. No football, man. Having to sit here and watch this boring ass baseball. Cause that's for old people, dog. I don't like no baseball, man. Baseball boring as fuck. I can't watch that shit, man. I fall asleep. I try to sit up and I try to watch it, but it's just boring as fuck, man. I can't watch that shit. So I'm very happy. I'm very happy that the NFL season is back and we finally get ready to watch some football, man. All right, enough of that shit. But yeah, man. Can't wait for the first game. First game is gonna be August 10th. Of course, I will be back after the game is over. to talk about everything that's happened. We'll probably only get to see like 2 drives from the starters, and then after that, we'll get to see some of those backups. And the backups, the backup positions, especially at like wide receiver, there's going to be some interesting battles for the backup wide receivers. Ford, Rashawn Scott, this Westerman kid. I think his name is Drew Morgan. There's a lot of interesting talent behind our starting 3 wide receivers. And Leonte Carew, I didn't mention him, but yeah, there's a lot. And fucking Jakeem Grant, man, I feel sorry for him because he's gonna find himself on the free agents list if he keeps dropping fucking passes and dropping fucking punts, man. That's all I've heard about Jakeem Grant in the goddamn in camp is that he's dropping punts still. He's a blazer, 4.3 speed, but he's got hands like a grandma in a goddamn wheelchair. Hey, yo, Jakeem Grant. Who the fuck is Jakeem Scott? Jakeem Grant. I mean, when we drafted this guy, I was thinking, damn, we could use him in so many ways. Use him in end rounds, use him on punt return coverage, put him in the slot some, let him catch some passes, get him in the open field, but he can't hold on to the goddamn ball. Problem. What did he fumble like 2 or 3 times last season? And then the next thing you know, you see somebody else back there. No, man. If we have a punt return specialist that is constantly dropping punts, so he ends up getting sat on the bench, then it makes no sense to hold a roster spot for that guy. No sense at all. Anyway, man, I will talk to you guys next time. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter. At Casual is the handle. At KASUWELL. Once again, that Twitter handle is at Casual. At KASUW. Shit. At KASUWELL. Hard hitting sports in your face, cooler than the other side of the pillow. All right, Miami. I'm out of here. Peace.